Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today we ended up seeing another new aftermarket update within Warzone and Modern Warfare 3, this time featuring the JAK VOLKH aftermarket part, which is actually available on two different weapons, the KVD Enforcer Marksman and then also the KV Inhibitor Sniper. And what this does is actually turn these weapons from semi-auto guns into two-round burst weapons instead. So yes, we do now have a burst sniper in the game and a burst marksman in the game. They're definitely not the most standard or practical options, but I did want to break down the overall loadouts for this aftermarket part, talk about whether or not it's actually a competitive option, because I'm sure you sit there and you hear a burst sniper, that's got to be pretty solid, right? So let's actually talk about that a little bit more in depth here. First things first, these are unlocked through this week's weekly challenges. You just have to complete any 5 between multiplayer zombies and Warzone here. Warzone's all based around fortunes keep, looting caches, and then the pretty standard stuff of placing top 10 5 times, doing contracts, only getting 5 kills. That's not too bad. Zombies also pretty straightforward, requires a lot of battle rifle and marksman rifle challenges, and then same deal with multiplayer. I did all mine in multiplayer personally, only took about 3 games to get all these done in the grand scheme of things. For a recommended weapon set to burst fire, keep in mind they took away the recommendations for like all the rifles, so I used the base Lockman Shroud. That's a 3-round burst SMG, so got kind of fortunate there, but that was kind of annoying trying to find which weapon would actually classify well for that. But after you go through and you unlock it, like I said, you actually have this available on 2 guns, the KVD Enforcer and the KV Inhibitor as well. So let's talk the Enforcer first and foremost here. The most important thing that I was looking for with this is if it did any change to the damage profile here, which it does not do according to the stats. What it does end up doing is slowing you down some, but it gives you better control, changes the fire rate obviously so that it is a 2-round burst. Now you'll see your headshot damage still capped out at 98, so it's going to take multiple shots, multiple bursts. It's never going to be able to truly one burst a fully plated enemy there. So that's important to note here, and I think a big distinction of whether or not it's worth it to use the JAK VOLKH conversion here or the base version of the KVD Enforcer in specific. But as far as going throughout the remainder of this class setup, all this ends up blocking is a rear grip and a stock, which isn't all that bad. I'd absolutely be running an optic here, and I like the Eagle Eye 2.5 times personally. I think that's a viable one. You definitely want to be using an extended mag here, of course, getting the max for your ammo. You don't have to reload anything. I also think using high grain is a pretty decent choice here too. It's going to end up getting that velo back up to 846. That's not bad for a hit scan range, decent effective damage range of 54 meters. Then I'd probably end up going for an integrated suppressor barrel. The recoil on this thing is not going to get much better in its burst, and outside of that, its slower fire rate means there's not much in between bursts. This will obviously help out a ton with that velo and get you a really good hit scan range, so I'm definitely a fan of that. Also, it's kind of 2 attachments in one, a barrel and a suppressor. So you have these 5 attachments on it. You go into the firing range here, and if we were to go through and put 3 plates on these dummies, you're going to notice that this thing actually is pretty accurate between its overall burst. Like, it's not too hard to stay on target. Keep in mind though, what you're seeing right now is me firing this as fast as I possibly can. I'm gonna spam my right trigger, and that's how quick the burst is. So if you don't hit your first 2 shots in a burst here, if you miss one of those or you simply crack armor and you're not getting that second shot off right away, you're probably not going to end up winning that gunfight, at least with the KVD Enforcer, right? Like, the delay in between bursts here is significant, meaning you have to pretty much be 100% accurate, and if you're not, you're going to pay the price for it. At the same time, if you're actually in a gunfight where the enemy is shooting back at you, they're probably going to be able to land a lot more shots in the same amount of time that I just shot those few, which also is kind of unfortunate. So the KVD Enforcer definitely was the one that I thought was going to be better, just because inherently the base KVD Enforcer is better than the KV Inhibitor from a TTK standpoint, but putting on this aftermarket part doesn't necessarily turn it into this just incredible beast. It's honestly pretty balanced with how slow that fire rate is. But let's also talk about the KV Inhibitor as well. And as we get into this portion of the conversation, quick reminder, if you are new to the channel, I always got you covered with all things going on in Call of Duty. So if you want to guarantee you're always up to date, be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications. And if you enjoy this video, you find it helpful at all, do me a favor, drop a like on it. It is always really appreciated. The Inhibitor outright, again, is going to be built somewhat similar. Once more, it's blocking the stock and it's blocking the rear grip. What's different here, though, is that your damage profile is more similar to that of a sniper. So headshot, if you can hit 2 headshots in a gunfight, that'll actually be a 1 burst knock in a sense, right? Upper torso would require 3 shots, it's since 112, and then you get to the lower body damage and it's not nearly as good. But once more, we're getting much better control out of this, then also just slowing you down some, changes up the velocity. So again, I want to be running an optic here. 2.5 times Eagle Eye is my one of choice. If you care about ADS speed, something like an LSJ3 could be decent here for sure. Speeds up the ADS and also the strafe speed a tad bit. So like that's not a you know, super obnoxious option. It's not going to slow you down or make the weapon that much less aggressive. 20 round extended mag here as well. I do also feel like you need to up that velo some too. So in this case, we're running the Spire Point rounds. You know, that's going to be the equivalent of high grain essentially here, since it is a sniper at the end of the day. So we'll go ahead, throw on these Spire Point rounds. We get what, up to an 867 velo there. That's not too bad. And then again, we do have an integrated suppressor that does 30% for our velo. So up past 1173 meter effective damage range. Basically the same build, just for a different feeling weapon. And despite the builds being so similar, you're gonna notice when I go into the firing range here, double check my 3 plates, it's a very different feeling weapon. The fire rate is much slower, but the delay in between the bursts is not nearly as rough, I would say, as opposed to the KVD Enforcer. But there's more noticeable recoil here with the burst. So if you're fighting at a longer range in this case, and you happen to hit, you know, maybe an upper body shot, you might miss the headshot. Or if you hit the first shot as a headshot, you might miss the second one because of the burst recoil. You can see there, I got a headshot on the first dummy in the back, but the second shot didn't end up hitting, so it takes another burst to kill. So there's going to be very few situations where you do end up getting a 1 burst kill with this version of the gun, unless you're fighting in the close range and you have this out and you happen to get like a chin shot and it kicks up to the upper part of the head. That would then in that case be a 1 burst kill or a 1 burst knock, which would be really good. But you're also going to have that same effect if you were fighting at this range with a Kar 98K or a Stalker or a Moors or a Cat, right? And this one obviously is a little bit different behaving in terms of its ADS speed. The delay between these bursts, like I feel like you could probably spam a Kar a little bit faster than this outright. So while in theory something like a 2-round burst would be really cool, I think in application this weapon is actually checked pretty nicely with its balances. The recoil on both of these guns, and then also the fire rate that we have between them as well, means that it's ultimately going to be feeling somewhat awkward in general, regardless of if you're fighting at 15 meters and going for a potential easier 1-shot burst, or if you're going at 55, 60, 70 meters, where the accuracy is going to be much more determining in whether or not you're winning the gunfight or losing the gunfight. So still kind of high skill gap weapons, all things considered. The inhibitor is not really a practical choice outright, but I don't really think there's necessarily a better version of this. It's just an awkward gun in general. This might be good for some players, might be more obnoxious for other players as opposed to semi-auto. The KVD Enforcer, I do think, is much better just as its standard semi-auto version, which is kind of strange. So this week's aftermarket part, a little bit less practical than most. That said, it's still important to unlock it if you care about getting that Season 4 Mastery camo in just a couple of weeks' time. So would still recommend going through and actually unlocking it. But that said, that is going to wrap things up for this video. If you enjoyed it, a like rating is always really appreciated. It does really help grow the channel. And if you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out so you can always guarantee you are up to date with everything going on in COD. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.